Welcome to this video where I'll be talking about how to create rock-solid customizations for dynamic CRM. So in the previous video we kind of saw an introduction of what is fake XRM Easy, how could help you using it. We saw also the project layout and how to install it. And in this video we're going to see how to apply, testing concepts like the arrange, act, and assert, specifically with this framework, with the fake XRM Easy. And finally, at the end, we are going to see how to use those concepts to test a CRM plugin. So, what's the AAA test pattern? It's basically divides into 3 different steps. First step is to arrange. So arrange means we have to say if we want to test a plugin or a code activity or anything, if we need some input data or some initial status for that plugin or code activity to be executed, that's the place where we will be doing that. So it's the first step of initialization in this case. So that step with fake XRM Easy is done via calling this initialize comment that will receive a list of entities. We're going to see this in a minute, but the arrange basically means first step we need to set up. In order to set up our test method. Second step is act. So once we have our test data initialized, we want to run our piece of code that we actually want to test. That could be a plugin, could be a code activity, could be whatever. And finally, when that plugin or code activity is executed, we want to make sure the output from that is the expected output, right? And that's what is called assertions. And so for the arrange, specifically, you're going to see really basic example where we have a XRM faked context like this, and this is just saying we're kind of creating an instance where we will have all our test data and also the result from those plugins or code activities executions. If those plugins create entities or create any records, those will stay in that kind of instance in memory. So in order to arrange this, in this example, we are just going to create a new contact with the last name property set to messy in this case, and we are going to say that this contact will have this GUID as well, a new GUID. This could be a hard-coded GUID if you want, but it's more handy to just use this for unit testing. And finally, we are just calling the initialize method, which receives a list of entities, and one of those entities is the contact, right? So essentially what we are doing is we are initializing our test method with a single contact record called messy. That's it, nothing else. So the second step would be to actually run the piece of functionality we want to test. And that could be anything. It could be executing a plugin, could be calling a web service, could be doing something like, for example, a create service, organization service, .create, .update, could be running queries, could be anything. Once we have executed our code, then the final step is to make sure the output from that execution is what we expect, and that's done via assertions. So for example, once the plugin has been executed, this plugin is from the SDK, it's the account number plugin, which just populates the account number property for an account record with some random number. Because it's random, in this case we just need to test that at least after the plugin is executed, the account record will have this new property as a new attribute, and that's the assertion. We're making sure this contains key is essentially true, right? So that's it. We are going to see now a demo of how to test actually a kind of plugin from Visual Studio. In the Visual Studio solution from the previous video, where we had basically the class library with the Camera plugin, and we created as well this new unit test project with our fake XRM easy already installed. So I'm going to set up a new test method to test this plugin, right? So we're going to use XUnit for that, so I'm going to click on Manage New Packages for Solution, and I'm going to browse XUnit, and we want to install this. This is essentially the XUnit runner. It's the test runner. It's the thing that will run our tests from Visual Studio. So I just need to install that for only the unit test project, like this. Install. Okay. That's finished now. And also I want to install the XUnit helper classes as well, not the runner, just the XUnit. And I want the version 1.9.2 and this one. Okay, that's installed. And so let me rename this to something more useful, like account number plugin tests, for example. Yes, and that's it. I'm not going to use a MS test for this. Just going to use XUnit. You could use whatever testing parameter test runner you want. I'm going to get rid of this and change this for a fact, and that's it. I can build this. Now we'll start it. And now, because the solution is being built, this is running behind the scenes. Is running the XUnit test runner, which is trying to discover any test, like this one, for example. And this is my test, which does nothing. If I implement something like this, false true, right? And execute this, run all. This test now will fail because, I just said that something that should be true is actually false. But this is just to get started with the test. It's taking a while. Just be patient. Discovering test now. Discovered starting, and there you go. This test is failing because something that should be false is true, right? So okay, now it's where we are going to start testing our plugin. So say we need to give this like a meaningful name, like when a account number plugin is executed, account number attribute exists, for example, right? So this is essentially saying that, well, this just giving a name to the test. So we need to test this plugin, right? And we need to make sure that when this plugin is executed, this new attribute is added to the entity. So very simple. The first step would be to create an instance of our fake context, XRM fake context, right here. And this is essentially the instance which will have our entities in memory, right? We could run multiple tests in parallel, and the entities from one instance wouldn't affect another instance, and so on. So okay, so I have this created. Now the second step would be to actually, because this plugin doesn't need any input data really, so we don't have to actually arrange anything in this case. But if we need some input data, then the first step would be to actually arrange that. So for this case, I just need to run the plugin directly with an account record. So I'm going to create a new account, like account. Sorry, I need to use the CRM. Actually, I need to include now my proxy types assembly as well. So I'm just going to grab this one from here, generate the code, copy into this project paste. Right. And now I can choose the proxy type assembly. You could use dynamic entities if you want. I'm just using this because it's more handy. Count ID equals with dot with. Okay, so this is the count. So I just need to run the plugin now, and that will be doing something like context.execute plugin with. And we have different method overloads depending on how you want to actually run the plugin. We don't need one special important thing here. We don't need at all how the plugin is registered. Like say for example, what is the message or the stage where this plugin is running. At this point, we are just testing the plugin from a unit testing perspective. So we're just testing the execute method. I don't care if that execute will be called from a pre-create or post-update or post-create, whatever. And we are just testing that method initialization. Obviously, if the plugin code needs to check some properties, like for example, the context or the stage or anything else, we can just inject them using a special class, but that will be for other video because in this case we just need to run the plugin. So I'm going to do that with execute plugin with target, and I want to execute the count number plugin. And actually I forgot to add a reference to the test, the class I already want to test. So I'm going to add that now, and I'm going to add this from the solution, this one. Okay, there you go. And then I can use the plugins from the assembly that I just references. Back here. Yeah. There you go. Okay, typo. Number. Go using my account customizations, and then I just want to run that plugin with this target, the camera, right? Then at the end, okay, I need to also add the Microsoft CRM assemblies. So I'm going to do that now from manage NuGet packages. I need to install these core assemblies. This should match in theory what the version of CRM you have installed, but because I'm just testing this with 2016, it could be anything else. I'm just using this for now. Resolve actions, yeah, accept. There you go, Microsoft.xrm SDK. There you go. So I can just execute this now, and then once this is executed, the final step would be to make sure that the account record attributes contains key contains the account number plugin. Right, so I will need this. Delete. There you go. I can build this now. Yeah, build. Build success. This is running. I'm going to run the test again. Okay, so we have just run our first test, and we actually successfully implemented a test for our account number plugin. And so we have just this tested now. The power of this is that I say, for example, we make some further changes to this in the future. I could go to the account number plugin and say, for example, this is changed to something like this, right? I can rerun the plugin code, the test code, sorry, and that will fail. So I will realize that I made some changes to the plugin that is actually breaking this test, and that should run now. There you go, it's failing, as you can see. If I roll back this to the previous value, for example, and the test will pass. Just run selected test, which is going to be quicker. Right, passed. In theory, that was one example as well, but I should also test all the other branches in my code like this. For example, we are just testing this bit, so but we should test that, for example, if I call the plugin with an account number attribute, that should raise an exception like this. So that could be actually a new test, like, for example, copy and paste this. Account number is executed with account number attributes. Exception is raised. So if I now add the account number attribute to something like whatever, it's a string, right? Yeah. This should throw an exception, throws, and to this expression where the actual execution throws the exception like this. There you go. Throws there you go. Exception. If I run this, I can run it just from this run tests, discovering the new test as well, and this test will pass, hopefully. Right, it's not passing, so we can just debug this test to see what's happening. And I'm going to show you actually how to debug this as well. Okay, so let's go to this is right here now. Count contains account number. Strong invalid plugin exception. This is because probably this is actually not throwing a generic exception, but this one in particular. I'm going to use And if I run this again, run test, see what happens. There you go, it passed. As you can see, I can just quickly test any changes to the plugin just by running the test. I can also run both tests at the same time now, but without even registering the plugin via the plugin registration, without going to CRM, without doing many different steps just to test this small piece of functionality. This is the point of using testing as well. So I successfully implemented these two tests, and actually I have also shown you how to debug your tests if you want. And also, so just to recap, what we have seen here was that we briefly discussed the AAA test pattern with fake XRM Easy. We have seen a demo about how to test a plugin, and also if you want more examples, you can go to these links where you'll find all ways of executing CRM plugins, and also how to execute code activities. And you could apply the same steps to literally test anything that runs on backend code, C# and that uses the I organization service. And that could be, for example, a web application, could be an ASP.NET 5 application, could be even, for example, a script component from an SSAS package. It could be anything. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please send me an email, and see you on the next video.